Hello and welcome to the series on Microsoft Power Apps, and in this video we're going to be looking at the remove function and see how we can remove an employee from our SharePoint list. So if we go have a look at our employee details screen, you can see over here we have an option to edit the employee. We can go back and we can also go to home. So I want to add another button that when you click on it, it will remove this record from our SharePoint list. So this is our SharePoint list, and the button that we will add will be the delete button, and it will use the remove function. So to achieve this, we're not only going to be using the remove function, we will also be using the if statement. And the if statement will check if that record is empty. And if it is empty, it will be using the error function to display an error. So although the information would be displayed on the screen, there could be a number of things that could happen in the time that you selected the employee and the time that you select the delete button. So for example, you could have a network problem that the information could be cached, or someone else could have deleted the record from SharePoint manually. So they could have selected the item and they could have selected delete. And this could happen at the same time that you are trying to delete the record. So in that case, the record would be empty, and we need to add an error function to achieve that. So let's have a look at the Microsoft documentation. I'll be including links to all the documentation in the video description. So first function that we're going to look at is the remove function, and just have a look at the description and information on it. The syntax is quite simple. So you have the remove function. Inside the brackets, you have your data source and the record you want to delete. So if we go back to our application and we have a look at our data source, we're using the employees data source, which is coming from our SharePoint list. If we look at our application and we go to our employee screen, this is the record that we want to delete. So let's just expand that. And you can see we have our employees gallery, and the record that we want to delete is the selected item. So if I hold down the Alt key and I select the employee, this is the selected item. So looking back at our formula, we have employees, and the record that we want to delete is the employee gallery dot selected. Then the next thing that we're going to do, we're going to check if our selected record is blank, and we're going to use an if statement for that. So if we scroll down, you can see the syntax for the if statement. So you have your if function, and inside the brackets you have your condition, and then you have your result, and then your default result. So our condition is going to be another function, and that function is blank. So you can see over here we have is empty and is blank. So let's have a look at what that function does. It has some description over here, but what's important is the syntax for is empty. So over here we'll be using our table, and in our case this is going to be another function coming from the errors function. So over here you can see we have the errors function, and basically what this does, it just checks if a value is empty. If it is empty, it returns an error. So let's scroll down to the syntax. So you have your errors, data source, and again our data source is going to be, if we have a look at our data sources, our employees data source and the record. And again, the record that we're going to be deleting is our employees gallery dot selected. So I will include links to this documentation, but let's create the button on our employees detail screen. So if we can select the back button, and we can just copy this and paste it. And we can just position it next to all the other icons, and I will be selecting the first back button, and I will be changing the icon. So if you see over here under icons in the properties, I can scroll down and I can select the trash icon. You could use another icon if you wanted to, but I'm going to be using the trash icon. And you can see over here it changes the icon in the display. Let's go on to the property selector and select on select. And let's remove the navigation function that was used for our back button, and it's no longer needed. So I'll add the remove function, and inside the bracket I'll be putting in our employees data source, comma, And this is the record that we need to delete. So in our case, it's the employee gallery dot selected. Great. So this is actually, as it is, it's functional. So if I run the application and I click on delete or the trash icon, it will delete this record from our database or our SharePoint list. But to add some error detection, we need to make some changes, and we need to add the additional functions. So we've used the function for remove. We need to use the if function, and inside there we're going to use is blank and then the errors function. So let's put a semicolon to separate that remove function, and we will say if open brackets, and we're going to call the isEmpty function, and we will open our brackets, and we will use the errors function. If errors, open the brackets, and our data source that we're going to be using is our employees data source, and we will say comma. The record that we're going to be detecting is to detect if this record is empty is our employee gallery dot selected. And we will close those brackets. So we close the brackets for the errors, we will close the brackets for the is empty, and we will say comma, and we will put in a back function to navigate back to our list of employees, so we can select another employee either to view the information, edit the information, or delete the information. And lastly, let's close the if bracket, and that is our function. So over here we have remove, and we have our data source, and we have our record, so the employees gallery dot selected, and then we have our if statement to check if this information is empty. It will check, it will return an error if it's empty. If it's not empty, we will also go back, and we will go back to our employees list. So let's save that. If we click on file and we click on save, and let's publish our application. And if we go back to our application and we press F5 or we launch the application, I don't want to delete this employee. So let's view all of our employees. I created a test employee in the previous video. So let's say test. If we select the test employee and let's click on the delete button, and it takes us back to our employees application and lists all the employees in our application. So I had the test displayed in the filter over here. So if I remove this, you can see we have a list of employees. If I search for test, obviously this is going to give no results because we just deleted that entry. And if we go into our SharePoint data list, if we scroll all the way down, we can see it's been deleted. So let's just refresh it to make sure it has been deleted, because this was information that we had previously. And if we scroll down, you can see we've got no employees with the name of test. Great. So let's just go back to our application. So what we've done, we've used the remove function to remove an employee from our SharePoint list. We use the if statement to check if there are any, if the record is blank, and if it is blank, we would have returned any errors. And after that, we will navigate back to our employee list. So in the next video, we'll be looking at how we can add our application to SharePoint. But let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video.